The mid-stretch in the year 2014 was one of the most eventful periods in Jak 3 speedrunning history. It was a time when the game's three best players, B-Dub, Raccoon, and myself, were honing our skills through hours and hours of repetitious practice. We collaboratively pushed the game all the way from 4111 to 3848 with very few new time saves. The skips that were found at the time were predominantly because we were now far more daring with our movement. Several shortcuts were effectively appearing right in front of us, as we were starting to realize the potential of the tools we had at our disposal. It suddenly became apparent that, yes, the Dune Hopper can jump this far to skip across to this island, and yes, the jetboard is more powerful than we once thought. The skill level across the field also rose as a result of getting to play with the same route for an extended period of time. This contrasts how we've seen the game evolve up until this point. In 2013, a new big time-saving skip would be found approximately every 45 days. But in 2014, we would see a huge dry spell for new breakthroughs from February onwards. Big skips during this time frame seemed hard to come by, but there was one that had seen a little bit of development, and that was Yin Yang Door Skip, one of the holy grails of Jak and Daxter sequence breaks. On May 5th of 2014, Qatar would post two highlights to his Twitch channel showcasing that Yin Yang Door Skip was theoretically possible, although there were still a lot of puzzle pieces left to fill in the gaps. The goal of Yin Yang Door Skip is quite simple on paper. It's to percentage warp the player from Find Oracle in Monk Temple to the end of complete Monk Temple tests, which would skip Defend Ashland and token skip completely. Qatar begins the first highlight by completing Find Oracle in Monk Temple as usual. In a speedrun setting, this is where you would usually destroy your car, warp back to the garage, and head to the next mission, Defend Ashland. Instead, Qatar decides to go back into the temple. The front door to get in is now locked, and this tarp that is used to perform Tom Jack's pillar clip is broken too. Both are a result of completing Find Oracle in Monk Temple. By all means, you're not intended to be able to re-enter the temple until you complete Defend Ashland. Qatar had a clever approach that could still get him to the pillar regardless of his surrounding restrictions, as he performs a handful of extended uppercuts to make his way out of bounds. He then roll jumps his way back in bounds across the big staircase and heads down to the circle room. Here, Qatar uses a position code on his emulator to clip through the locked door leading into the rotator room. This was just done to demonstrate things faster, but getting into the rotator room without emulator cheats was actually possible, and Qatar had discovered a way. This leads us to his second highlight. Here, Qatar decided to not clip back in bounds at the staircase, instead opting to descend it from out of bounds. In order to actually load in the rotator room so that it isn't just a void, two loading triggers need to be hit while staying out of bounds. The first one is this connection point in the stairs. This one is quite easy to hit. You can see when you've gotten it when the blue background turns to black. The second loading trigger is a bit further down, but it's here where we are faced with an arduous challenge. So far, Qatar's been able to make his way through the temple from out of bounds purely because the developers left the floor collision a bit imperfect, as it pokes out of the wall pretty much the whole way down. But then we have this section. Jak's position is over here, and the area we want to reach, the circle room, is all the way over here. Since there's essentially no floor to stand on and also no jetboard by this point in the game, it left Qatar with very little to work with, but he pushed on and found a way across. By utilizing these tiny invisible magic pixel spots on the floor, you could inch your way over with the help of the wave concussor. You're seeing Qatar load his save state a lot, and that's because this is extremely difficult. Aside from being a great glitch hunter, Qatar was a top 5 player in 2014, and this section still managed to take him an hour, even with save states. To add insult to injury, the second trigger to load the rotator room is in the middle of this jump sequence. The trigger is only hit when the camera passes through it, so a lot of precision is necessary. If you manage to hit it, you've successfully loaded in the rotator room, and it can be reached by navigating around the outside area of the circle room. Returning to Qatar's first highlight, he once again uses a position code to teleport himself to the upper part of the room where you cross the blades. He didn't know of any way to make it from the bottom to the top, but he at least wanted to showcase that there was something up here. Since you don't have Light Jak Freeze or the jetboard to cross the rotator, the only way to make it over is going on foot, which is doable and also very inconsistent, but again, Qatar just uses emulator tools to demonstrate what the goal was, and that was to reach this checkpoint trigger on the other side. Once you go through it, you have now grabbed a checkpoint that corresponds to the ending of complete Monk Temple tests. The developers kept this checkpoint trigger active at all times, except during Find Oracle in Monk Temple, which is why Qatar completed the mission before going back inside. Upon grabbing the checkpoint, dying and respawning, the level is loaded and the door leading to subrails is waiting on the other side. Qatar crosses the crumbling bridge with a little bit of finesse, and there it was, the first theoretical yin-yang door skip. Qatar had a pastebin with some notes for his highlight, and at the bottom it states, "I understand that this is impossible in RTA, and even on an emulator with save states, it's really hard to get. This video just shows what is technically possible." While this discovery was huge, no doubt, it didn't catch the eyes of the community immediately. When Qatar posted his findings, B-Dub and I were in the heat of the battle for the sub 40, and other runners in the Skype group paid little attention to yin-yang door skip. Perhaps it was just a little bit too complicated for the average mind, so it went under the radar. This wouldn't deter Qatar, as he would continue to research ways to make it viable, with the only thing that was really missing being to find a way to get from the bottom floor in the rotator room to the top. Qatar would spend the greater part of June looking for a way to reach the top. The most promising part of the level was these pillars that were spread throughout the room. Surely there was something. On June 15th, yin-yang door skip would finally come together, as Qatar would unveil a video showcasing the skip from start to finish. Segmented, of course. The key to scaling the rotator room was Tom Jack suggesting utilizing Dark Jack at the pillar. First, Qatar does a high jump spin to wedge Jack between the pillar and the wall, whereafter a sequence of peculiar jumps was done to reach the top. The ceilings he jumped into have some special properties in that they give you a grounded standpoint for a brief moment, allowing you to infinitely jump. Afterwards, we also get to see what it looks like to cross the rotator without light jack freeze or the jetboard. It looks pretty smooth here, but that's because this is segmented. The odds of getting hit by the blades are pretty big, and getting flung to the right is also a common issue. But it was there. Yin-yang door skip was possible, but look at the road ahead. You would have to hit the precise out-of-bounds jumps, the Dark Jack infinite jumps, and you would have to navigate the rotator with your only slightly helpful tool being the wave concussor. This had the potential to save a few minutes, but good luck with that. Since Qatar himself didn't have much faith in the RTA viability, other top players like B-Dub, Raccoon, Blost, and myself were not too encouraged either. And for the next few months, we would all continue playing with the old route, as completing a run with the skip seemed too far-fetched. In September of 2014, the competition at the top of Jak 3 Any% went pretty dry, as Raccoon would take a break after his 38-48. But just 1 month prior, a new player had begun lowering his PBs into the mid-40s, and soon enough, he would become the one who was willing to stare yin-yang door skip dead in the eyes. Yankee was a very fast improving player when he arrived on the scene in mid-2014. His PB by the beginning of August was 47.07, which he would lower to 42.05 by early October, a 5-minute improvement across 2 months. On November 18th of 2014, Yankee closed out a strong run of 40.36, still quite far from Raccoon's 38, but a solid time to firmly place himself in the top 5. Yankee was quite satisfied with the execution of his 40.36, and felt that there was now one of 2 roads he could take going forward. Keep playing with the same route, possibly PB by inches, or explore the uncharted territory that was yin-yang door skip. He was definitely curious to see if it really was as hard as people made it sound. Soon after, he reached out to Qatar to receive as much knowledge as possible on the skip, and in December, the journey would begin towards conquering one of the most elusive skips in the Jak series. In Qatar's segmented video that showcased the full yin-yang door skip, the skip was actually done during Climb Monk Temple instead of after Find Oracle. This would drastically change the difficulty in the final part of the skip, and we'll get to why a bit later. This was not something Yankee could pass up on though, as doing the skip from Climb Monk Temple saved an additional minute and a half, putting Yin Yang door skip's total possible time save in the ballpark of around 4 minutes. On December 16th, Yankee would have a run that started out about 40 seconds behind Raccoon entering the temple. But really, Yankee was just taking any run to the temple to have a shot at potentially making history. As he went inside, the first thing he did was to intentionally clip inbounds at the staircase and grab the red ammo at the bottom, as the default 20 bullets were not enough to complete the skip, unless your execution is flawless and hit everything first try. Now that the gun is loaded, he restarts the mission to attempt Yin Yang door skip. In stunning fashion, Yankee managed to hit the jumps over to the circle room on his first try. It's easily one of the hardest parts of the skip, and Yankee made it look easy. After jumping across, he uses a new strat that he had discovered a week prior, which involves clipping the camera in bounds at the entrance to the circle room, to ensure that the trigger to load in the rotator room is a guaranteed hit. The section to get up to the rotator had also been made far easier. Yankee would forego using Dark Jack, as a new technique made the climb more straightforward: the ABBA bounce. On certain collision, Jack will get stuck in his ground pound animation for an extended period of time. If you can manage to hit X during a 3-frame window, right as the animation ends, you can get a much higher jump than normal. It was discovered that it was possible to ABBA bounce between the wall and the pillar to reach the rotator's infinite jump ceiling from below, allowing Yankee to make it to the top. His first go at crossing the rotator would result in him getting knocked down by the first blade, forcing him to redo the climb. A huge reason rotators are so difficult to cross on foot is because it is near impossible to create any form of visual cue due to the rotation speed of the blades themselves. You kinda just have to go and pray you don't get hit. While it takes some luck, Yankee did have a general strategy in mind, as he prioritized sticking to the left-hand side when crossing. If you get hit by one of the blades, you would typically fly a bit to the right, and if you landed in the middle of the rotator, you could regain your footing and use the invincibility frames to sneak through the blades and continue across. After grabbing the checkpoint, dying and respawning, Yankee had to face the hardest part of the skip. Doing Yin Yang door skip from Climb Monk Temple instead of after Find Oracle completely despawns the bridge to the subrails. How was he gonna cross now? The obvious thought was to use these pillars to his right, and getting across would be easy. The only issue, there is a huge invisible death plane right in the way. Luckily, there was a way to make it over the death plane, but it didn't come without problems. Yankee would spend the next 2 minutes in agony as he would die over and over before finally sticking to the wall he was trying to climb. Once he reaches the top, he does another ABBA bounce and stalls long enough in the air with the wave concussor to go over the death plane, landing safely on the pillar. And with a few more jumps, Yin Yang door skip had been done for the first time on a PS2 in an actual speedrun. Look at that gold split.
Yankee will, hear everyone saying, "Oh no, this is impossible, no one will ever pull this off," and then he'll just go and do it. No one wanted to be the first person to try and do something because they were afraid of failing. That's how I see it anyway. I think that's the most memorable thing about his play is, he just didn't care.
I just heard that it was just this impossible trick that no one would ever be able to do. And then when I got to a point where I didn't think I could PB just by continuing to do runs without adding anything new, that's when I looked into it. I asked Qatar about it, and then spent a few hours on stream just trying to do it. And that's when I realized that it was not actually as difficult as everyone thought. It definitely looked intimidating, but you never know until you try it. That's kind of my philosophy, is just try it, and if I can do it, then I'll do it.
Yankee would play the run out and complete a 39.50. A new PB, but a world record was very much on the table without the deaths in the bridge section. Luckily, that would not be a problem anymore, as he would get some assistance from an unlikely source. The next week, Jak 2 speedrunner Nitrovsky would find something massive for Yin Yang door skip. He discovered that this checkpoint right before the rotator was far more convenient in comparison to the crumbling bridge one. Why? Well, first off, you get a checkpoint right before the rotator, so if you fall, you can just die and you won't have to redo the ABBA bounce. But the second and most important one, the bridge section is loaded with the bridge spawned in. And when you go across the rotator and touch the bridge checkpoint, the game updates Jak's position on the mission tree, giving you the jet board, completely eliminating the complicated jumps over the death plane. The projection for Jak 3 80% was now set in stone. Yin Yang Door Skip was now the most viable it had ever been. Don't get me wrong, it was still the hardest trick in the entire Jack series by a mile, but it was at least possible, and that's all that mattered. The world record was going down, and Yankee was gonna lead the way. On Christmas Eve, December 24th, 2014, Yankee would get this run. $37.43, the first world record run with Yin Yang Door Skip, ending Raccoon's 3-month reign at the top. With his bravery and determination, Yankee had proven that the skip, while still very difficult, was the way forward. There was still a lot of time to be gained, mainly because Yankee lost over a minute to this costly death, but he also bled considerable time throughout the rest of the run. But Jack 3 had once again been broken, and the world record was now ripe for the taking if any top player could hit Yin Yang Door Skip on the first try. Raccoon and I had a talk about potentially coming back to compete for the record again. The spark was slowly coming back after a 3-month break, and if I was going to plug my console back in, he was going to as well. We motivated and encouraged each other to get back in the game, and we didn't hesitate to jump headfirst into learning Yin Yang Door Skip. After practicing the trick for a handful of hours, Raccoon and I announced that we would be coming back to Jack 3 80% in the form of a YouTube video. This went into detail on the new skip and explained the time save to my growing audience, and also that the two of us would do 5 no reset races on the 30th of December. But I also revealed something else in the video. A 38.18 from Raccoon, and a 37.32 by me, beating Yankee's record by 11 seconds. But everyone knew that neither of these times were very good. There were still minutes left to shave off, so the three of us got to work. Yankee would strike back the next day with a 35.48, a run that hit Yin Yang Door Skip with no accidental deaths, but a pretty poor endgame with a 30-second mistake to Terraformer. As the 30th of December rolled around, it was time for my 5 any% races against Raccoon. During one of the races, he would finally nail the difficult jumps to the circle room on the first try. The rest of the skip had some slowdowns, but he got through in the end. Raccoon was a whole 30 seconds behind Yankee after the temple, but being the more experienced runner, he slowly clawed his way back, saving time on nearly every split, to secure a 35.08. Watching Raccoon play so confidently with what seemed like very little nerves post Yin Yang Door Skip was really— oh, would you look at that, it's the hover glitch. Found by Unreal on the 16th of November 2014, the hover glitch was such an impactful discovery to Jack 2 and 3 that I made an entirely separate 50-minute video on its discovery. If you initiate a side trick by pushing the analog stick halfway left or right and press L1, then move the stick all the way up or down, you can perform 2 tricks in one jump. If you continue to repeatedly press L1 afterwards, Jack would begin soaring through the air, a trick that now opened the floodgates for all kinds of time save.
Back in the day, it was mind-blowing. It completely destroyed all of the meta. The changes to the route were unthinkable. Nobody had a clue what's gonna happen. Obviously, the world records were like, you could throw them out the window. They were pretty much irrelevant because of this trick.
I remember Unreal's video, and I remember everyone trying to figure out how the fuck to actually do it consistently. That's what I remember. Tom Jack was the first one to actually figure it out, but then nobody could figure out how he was so good at it because language barrier.
Yeah, no one had any idea how it worked for a good few weeks. We were all just trying to figure out, just spamming the L1 button, trying to figure out how it worked.
The weird thing is that Even the founder, like Unreal, couldn't really explain the inputs very well, so it was for the most part just a trial and error in mashing certain buttons and turning the analog stick, and it was really frustrating at the beginning.
No one was streaming Jak 1, but there was one person speedrunning Jak 3, and so I clicked at this run, and I see him hovering for the first time, and that knocked my socks off. When I first saw that hover, I didn't know what to think. It was like a whole new world.
By the time Raccoon got his 3508, he was confident enough in his abilities with the hover glitch that he decided to use it in 2 spots. One outside of Palace Ruins to obsolete the proxy, which added consistency and saved a few seconds, and a second in Darkship to skip the final usage of the Lightjack wings in any percent. This hover would normally save around 20 seconds, but Raccoon failed it once, losing him almost 40. The difficulty with this hover lies in the fact that you have to begin your jump at the right angle, and then stop hovering at the correct moment to be high enough to go above this trigger. If you fall into the elevator below this trigger, the escape sequence at the bottom of the shaft doesn't load. Worst of all, if you're right in the middle, the game will crash, ending any chances at a PB. Without the big death in Darkship, Raccoon could have achieved the first 34, but again, we were just taking turns whittling away at the record, and the next to take a stab at it would be me, as I would put together 2 runs in under 35 minutes. A 34:30 with no video, and a 34:22. While this record wasn't as strong as the pair of 38s, it was still nice to know that even with how different the route was now, I could still be in the mix with the best of them. Admittedly, it was kind of exhausting having to essentially relearn the game multiple times, but it was also incredible to witness new game-changing discoveries firsthand. And I was about to witness yet another one. In less than 2 weeks after Yankee did his first run with Yin Yang Door Skip, he would collaborate with Guitar to discover something even bigger. What exactly were they cooking? Let's go back to the temple. Some important information about the temple that I conveniently left out is the fact that there actually exists a 4th mission here. I've familiarized you with the 3 missions that take place in the game's first act, but entering the 3rd act, there's a mission called Rescue Seam at Temple, and Guitar and Yankee had found a percentage warp to reach the mission. During the death warp to load in the bridge room, they figured out that instead of crossing the rotator to make your way to the subrails, you can make your way into the room with the Oracle, also known as the power room. Upon entry, a massive invisible cutscene trigger needs to be avoided, to not update Jack's position on the mission tree to find Oracle in Monk Temple. The way the trigger was avoided was by releasing a wave concussor shot right before high jumping, to leap up to a standpoint on top of a pillar, where a second concussor high jump was just enough to make it over the trigger. Now if you platform your way over to the other side of the room, then open and close this door that is associated with the Rescue Seam at Temple mission, your position on the mission tree is updated all the way up to it, percentage warping you from 24% to 81%. This warp was coined Temple Skip, and was an absolutely massive discovery, once again saving upwards of 4 minutes. The 80% route was about to see its biggest change ever. From the mission order to where you go, Jak 3 80% was a brand new category, and after triggering the percentage warp, the route was about to look very unfamiliar. The quickest way to finish the game from here is to restart to put you back at the beginning of the temple, destroy the vehicle to get back to the garage, and hop into the carrier that brings Jak from Spargus to Haven City. This carrier spawns in this location after the mission Hijack Eco Vehicle, a mission that's played in the middle of Act 2. Since you've now percentage warped way past that mission, the game counts it as completed, and Haven City can be accessed after about 16 minutes of play. The area where the carrier takes us to is the Haven City port, which is effectively across the entire map from Palace Ruins, which is where we need to go. This introduces some zoomer travel throughout the city to get there, but also one more skip. The Palace Ruins area is blocked off by this giant white barrier that goes away at a later point in Act 3. So how do we get around it? Well, most of the footage that you've been watching in regards to this new route is from a 3315 that I set on January 12th, 2015. The first recorded run with Temple Skip. One would assume that the hover glitch would be the solution to our problems.
I'll do the normal skip, thank you.
Well, it seems that hovering over your problems isn't always the most wise idea. After dying, I decided to attempt a different strat. where I would maneuver around the barrier by using a zoomer to get out of bounds. This was followed by some wave concussor jumps, and a hover to clip back in bounds. From here, you enter Palace Ruins just like before, and the routes merge here, leading to the same endgame. Since the route has changed a lot now, here's a quick recap with an updated mission tree. The run starts in the arena with Training Course and Earn First War Amulet, where you then move on to Kangarats, Satellite, and Learn to Drive. After doing the restart warp after Learn to Drive, you head to the cave to perform Cave Skip and complete Destroy Eggs. You then make a quick trip to the garage to swap to the Dune Hopper to reach the temple, where Temple Skip is performed, allowing you to reach Act 3. Next is taking the carrier to Haven City and traveling from the south end of the map to the north to reach Palace Ruins, and from there, you complete the final few missions. It's seriously amazing what the Jack community was able to do with this game in just 2 years. With what started as a standard route that completed 23 of the game's 60 missions in 2013, we've now more than halved it, with the current route only completing 10. Subrails 1, Ecomine, Bomb Train, and the Precursor Robot fight were completely skipped as a result of Temple Skip. 4 missions that had essentially been standard since the game's speedrunning inception, gone with the wind. Ecomine and Bomb Train being cut from the run was a bit of a downer for those who loved that fast-paced jetboarding action, but nonetheless, Jak 3's history would continue, and the competition was still in full swing at the beginning of 2015. Raccoon and Yankee were eager to improve their times with the new route. My 33:15 was riddled with mistakes, so new world records were definitely inbound. Seeing the potential time save, they threw their hats in the ring.
Fuck, dude, we are in there. So bad. Alright, let's calm down. I can do this. We are fucking in there, man! Oh my god, dude. I don't believe it. Holy shit, we're on 30-30 pace. $13.40.69. Oh yes. Yes, I'm done. Oh my god, I am fucking done with this category for a little while.
After a fierce week of playing from the 3 of us, the record would sit at 30-40 for the time being. It was a blast to compete with Yankee and Raccoon. We were 3 runners at similar skill levels, cashing in on yet another Jak 3 gold rush. At this time, it was starting to become tradition to softlock on purpose during the credit sequence after you got a new personal best. By rapidly mashing the D-pad left and right, it's possible to overlap the characters. This causes the game to lag so much that it eventually freezes, which can lead to some truly magnificent pieces of art. My 30-40 was a decent time, but we were now approaching yet another barrier. The hunt for the sub-30 was inevitable. For Yankee, Raccoon, and myself, conceiving of such a monumental time was extremely intimidating. But this is when a new player would enter the fray, and the fire would be sparked back up as we would get a little help from Hillary Puff.
California was a person, it would be Bob. He's
just a fucking goon, dude. Like, I don't know. He's like, you meet him and he's not a fucking speedrunner, dude. Like, he's so out of place at like this ESA we're at right now. He's like the most out of place fucking speedrunner in the entire place. It's ridiculous. Like all these nerds walking around, then you have fucking Bob, who's like literal Giga Chad. Dude's a skater. He has like a real career that's like sick, and then like He also happens to just be hardcore at Jack 3.
Maybe people overuse the word chill, but he just is chill. That's the best word for him. So, I mean, he's just a great embodiment of what we seem to strive for in the Jack community.
He's the kind of guy who you just, at face value, seems like all he does is just kind of chill out and not stress about too much, but then he's like cranking out top times. It's kind of a funny contrast.
In early 2015, the Jack community experienced a small boom in growth. The games were as active as ever, and for Jack 3, Hillary Puff was a very welcome addition. But we just call him Bob. Bob started out by ironing out his skills in the hero mode category, but with the amount of competition going on in any percent, he decided to move over. We were now 4 different players who had their sights set on the grand sub 30. Who was gonna get there first? Raccoon would be the first to strike, improving on the world record by 17 seconds to 30:23.
Alright. Congrats on the run, dude.
Thanks.
His early game in this run is by far the fastest start the game had seen up until this point, with an 8:27 cave skip. A good bit of this came from getting good luck on Satellite, with a total of 5 doubles. This mission's RNG swing was now starting to matter a lot more than before. The run was only 30 minutes long, and now had its emphasis on raw speed more than ever. Runners have had a month and a half to play with Yin Yang Door Skip, and its now bigger brother, Temple Skip. With the passing of time, everyone was slowly improving at this once thought behemoth. Don't misunderstand me here, the trick was still a big run killer, but it was now for a bit of a different reason. It wasn't a necessity to simply execute Temple Skip, you now needed to execute it fast. Quicker movement down the stairs, faster jumps to the circle room, and getting the Ababounds in as few tries as possible, everything mattered. And runs dying to Temple Skip were now a result of runners sacrificing consistency in the pursuit of speed. One thing that was seeing more consistency overall was the hover glitch. After enough reps, it was starting to feel more natural now. Once again, with speed being at the forefront, seamlessly transitioning grounded jetboard movement into full speed hovers was the next great step towards optimization. No player embodied this new movement towards raw speed more than Yankee. He easily had the most balls to the wall approach regarding smaller time saves. Take this run. Yankee is 37 seconds ahead after Temple Skip, and as he enters Haven City, he would attempt the verbosely named super fast hoverbike glitch. This trick was discovered by a random guy on YouTube called Addison Lucchesi all the way back in April 2009, with the video title, Jack 3 Super Fast Hoverbike Glitch. The trick involves using Light Jack Freeze and the Wave Concussor in combination to send the zoomer flying forward. Yankee didn't really save any time in his run with it, but it can save up to 5 seconds if done perfectly. Yankee would continue his run with an extremely good BTR, nailing the now standard crater jump and continuing his run at near sub 30 pace. In Darkship, Yankee unfortunately hovered too high and landed on top of the elevator rather than falling down the shaft, losing 10 seconds. The run was still a new record at 30:15, but this was very close to breaking the half-hour barrier. Bob was starting to get really close to his first any percent record. His PB right around when Yankee got 30:15 was only 6 seconds slower at 30:21. Bob would find himself on a run that missed Fast Cycle Terraformer to put him 8 seconds behind. He still had some time left on his final boss split, so a PB was still on the table. But little did anyone know how much time he really had to save.
Bob, next time you should reset against this PB if it's not a 409.
He's never gonna fucking get a 409 again.
Oh my
Probably.
gosh, it's world record by 1 second.
Are you
Oh my god. I said I'm the fourth.
Yankee, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Bob was on the board. A new record by 1 second. But Yankee wasn't sorry. He would take the record back with a 3-second improvement to 30:11, although the video is no longer available. It seemed like sub 30 was coming down to Bob or Yankee. They were the closest and pacing the most runs. Yankee would once again be on another run 10 seconds ahead entering Temple Skip. He slightly tweaked the out of bounds to the circle room by reducing the amount of times you had to land from 2 down to 1. This would also hit the loading trigger in the middle of your jump, skipping having to clip the camera inside altogether. This was easily the best Temple Skip to date, pulling out a massive 29-second lead. The world was still not ready for the super fast hoverbike glitch, but the run was still alive. Yankee would continue his run with the most ballsy BTR I've ever seen in a Jack 3 run. Being on sub 30 pace, Yankee pulls all the stops. From the get-go, he attempts first barrier skip, a very difficult jump to get around the first barrier that he unfortunately misses on his first try. On his second attempt, he nails it, which would have been about even with breaking the towers. Immediately after nailing the trick, Yankee goes for an insane launch to the next tower that only saves around 2 seconds. He hits the water segment shortcut that had been standard for a while, skips the second to last bridge, which is way harder than it looks, and nearly gets struck by a missile during crater jump. Yankee held it together during the last few missions, until he finally made history on July 11th, 2015. Yankee had broken one of the most legendary milestones for Jak 3. The fact that the game could now be completed in under half an hour speaks volumes about how much the route changes impacted the game, and how good the runners had gotten now. We used to track our speedrun times in an old Google Doc style leaderboard, and for the first time, the top spot read 29. Despite breaking through the barrier, Yankee still wasn't satisfied leaving it there, and he wasn't the only one. 5 days later, Bob was next in line for a sub 30.
Oh nice, 29.51.
Yet another 5 days later, Yankee would have a super up and down run that eventually came out to a small new record of 29.49. I hadn't really been in the mix for the sub 30, and I wanted to prove to myself that I could still compete with Bob and Yankee. I would get a 30.06 pretty quickly after some derusting. Great progress considering I still had lots of time to save in the early game. I remember witnessing Yankee's 29.49 live on his Twitch stream, and upon seeing his success, I felt inspired and went live myself. I would have a run that started out with a small time loss at Satellite, but I brought it back after a good temple skip. My 30.06 had a really solid endgame, so it wasn't really possible to gain any time there. I needed to stay even, which I would do split after split. Before I knew it, my clean play would amount to a big world record improvement.
I got it. 29.36. Oh my god. Guys, I did it! I did it, guys. I did it. I got sub 30. I got world record. Holy shit. I knew I could do it. I want to give out shoutouts to Hillary Puff and Yankee027. You guys are fucking awesome. Thank you so much for optimizing this game.
29.36. When I got this time, I remember feeling like this was it. My cleanest run yet. A run with no huge mistakes, and finally something to show for all of my years of effort. I was content. When derusting the game to achieve this time, it only struck me afterwards how many small optimizations Yankee and Bob had workshopped to save mere seconds. Instead of using the platform at the end of the training course, a precise ledge grab was used to get to the light early. A drive-by shot for the 5th egg was discovered by Yankee that saved a little over a second, and taking a more direct line to the end zone in Palace Ruins with a slick hover bounce. Just these tiny things. Of course, no run is ever perfect. There is always room to improve the record. And the obvious time save on my run was to grind for a better satellite, or go for first barrier skip or super fast hoverbike glitch. Tricks that I just didn't have the guts to attempt. Yankee and Bob would also always save a second over me in training course. Watching their movement throughout this area was mesmerizing. But this would rack up plenty of resets too. I don't know if it's just because I'd been running for nearly 3 years at this point, but I was kind of over the days of caring about getting the fastest possible start. It's a phase a lot of runners find themselves in when they're new, and it was undeniable that Bob was in that category. Perhaps tired from all the training course resets, he decided to race Yankee and others in Jak 3 any%, just to finish out some runs. The first few splits are always going to be bad, and that's just the nature of races. Without the ability to reset, you're naturally going to take things more safe. But races also lead to some of the most unlikely stuff you'll ever see. Like, Bob gets 7 doubles on Satellite here, which happens around 1 in 50 runs that get to the mission.
I got a fucking good Satellite.
I got 4 doubles in first phase.
Nice. I think I made... Wow. This might be a 7. Oh wow, I'm ahead of my PB.
Cave skip goes well, the driving segment goes well, and temple skip too? Bob, are you really about to do this?
I golded BTR. I'm minus 11 on my PB right now.
That'd be like plus 500.
I golded Arc Ship. I'm minus 16 on my PB. Why am I nervous, dude? Like, I never get nervous in races. That's why I'm good at them. Now I'm getting nervous.
Man.
Nice, 29:34. Oh! Is that world record?
Yeah, that's world record.
Oh, fuck yeah, dude. Damn, what was that final boss segment?
Miraculously, Bob had capitalized on his early fortune, clutched up, and achieved a new record during a race. And yes, that is indeed Bob inside of a Chuck E. Cheese costume.
Well, just the race in general, you know, that was a really great era for the game, and I think it was exciting for everybody too, that the record just kept getting pushed lower and lower. That was cool. In particular, the 29:34 is special to me just because we were racing and it was fun and it was just like super good vibes, and that's like what it's all about for me. I didn't even know, like I had to ask Yankee if it was record because I didn't even know what record was. It was just like just doing a run, you know? That was pretty cool.
Bob's time would stand as the record for a good while. Yankee was definitely within striking range, and his next PB would be mere seconds away, with 29:35, which at the time put the top three players mere seconds apart. Despite being so close to each other time-wise, the activity suddenly halted. I can't exactly tell you why we all stopped playing. It was perhaps a scenario where we needed each other as competition, otherwise the dominoes would fall. Raccoon seemed pretty done with Jack 3. He brought robot-like consistency to the game and elevated the jetboard to new heights. But he was burnt out. After setting 6 world records in his career, Raccoon faded from the scene. Yankee was very much a person who needed other players to be playing for him to be motivated too. And with the competition dying down, he left as well and moved on to other things. His bravery in pushing temple skip and other crazy strategies into the any % route will always be remembered. I said I couldn't exactly tell you why we all stopped playing, but I can definitely tell you why I stopped. To be honest, I was tired. It's been 3 years of playing a game where I constantly had to adapt to what felt like an entirely different game. 50% of my playtime with Jack 3 was spent practicing missions that were no longer in the route, so in some sense, I felt like I was just wasting my time. In September of 2015, unsurprisingly, more discoveries would hit the Jack 3 scene, and that's about when I put the controller down. This essentially left Bob as our only hope for pushing the game further. From the outside, it didn't seem like there was anyone else but him who could carry the torch. But amidst the flock of runners appearing to be done with the game, a new rising star would emerge, and a mark would be left that would change the game for good. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please consider subscribing or supporting me on Patreon. Take care, and I'll see you next time for Era 5.